Dr. Fowler.
Together. And evidently I was talking with no sound forever.
Well, thanks for telling me. There we are.
Yeah, because the Baofeng, I have one of those ham radios as well. It's a Baofeng, but you need to download the software into it. You can't just take it off. This is another thing. You cannot just take that ham radio off the shelf and just start hitting all the channels on it, low frequency, high frequency. You need to go. You have to download everything to get it to go into the channel range that you want to. Which is again, like why is it not plug and play off the shelf? Why is not everything on there already? And then you have to go to a site and download that and put it on and everything. Why is it not just standard plug and play? I just don't get it.
Oh, because they want it to be more complicated for you. If and we kind of touched on that. I think the last time we were talking when I was talking about having to do repair to plumbing. When you take your old pieces that are in your house and you go to these like Home Depot, Lowe's, etc., any kind of these hardware stores, what you'll find out is that the manufacturers have slightly changed the product just enough that it won't work, and you can't just go get a replacement. You have to get a new one, and then of course rearrange your pipes and stuff to the proper lengths and fittings and etc., etc. Like the other day, I had a problem with my water heater, and of course the new pieces, they just it's totally different and wouldn't fit into my water heater. That's not very old. But they would rather me pay $800 for a new water heater than what I did, which is go find a little $2 or $3 piece of pipe that was left over from something else old, and then make me a new fitting with the thermostat in it.
Or you could buy the step down coupler that they knew would be planned obsolescence for $5.80 or $10 or something. Oh, it's only an $8 piece. It's only a $5 piece. It's a little piece of plastic. It's a planned obsolescence step down. And I find a lot of that stuff too, Ransom, when I'm trying to connect hoses or, quick connect, disconnect. There's slightly different by like literally a 16th of an inch, and one of mine snagged. And it's the damnest thing to try to get it to unsnag. And it was a different off brand from another one, but it was just off enough, like literally a 16th or a 32nd of an inch, enough to when it connected, but now to try to disconnect it. Oh, we tried to use pliers and a few other things. I think I just have to ditch the attachment and buy a whole. And that little coupler that's a couple bucks. Now I might have to ditch the nozzle head on it. It's crazy. All these things that are happening right now with planned obsolescence. And what's the longest thing that you ever remember? Because my grandparents, they would buy a washing machine and it would last forever. And now you buy a washing machine, now you look at it, super pretty, shiny bells and everything, and you think, okay, 3 years, 5 years, and I'll have to get a new one. But that's what you look at when you buy it. And you say, all right, that washing machine's like what? What can you get a washing machine? $800, something like that, $1,000. And you go, okay. Oh, in another 3 years, I'll have to. So you're spending like $1 a day just to have a washer for $300 a year over a 3-year planned obsolescence, where you're having a washer in your house for $1 a day. It's almost a damn go to a coin laundry.
Oh yeah, mix it up in there. Do you think those places are even open now with the supposed transmission of things? Uh, and you're right about that. My house right now, my refrigerator's old. The washer and dryer's really old, and I know that if those things break, and they work really good, so I'm going to be brokenhearted. Luckily, we have some newer stuff, but they're not easily repairable. Like you get one of those, like you said, a brand new shiny dryer or washing machine. It's got a digital readout on the front and little press buttons, and there's a bunch of circuit boards and stuff. It's nothing like the old washer that just had some switches, belts, and you plugged it into the wall. And if it broke, you could fix your dryer with a pantyhose or something like that. That's not what you're going to do now. You need special plastics and parts to fit into the new stuff. So what's funny is if any kind of grid failure did happen, what's going to happen is you'll have a bunch of people with like those old propane dryers on a propane thing, and they're drying, and then they're washboarding their clothes because there's no electricity. But you could still use appliances like that, which is a really good idea. And I don't know how many people think of that, but if you have a gas dryer, you can change the orifice over to like some propane, and you can take that thing out in the middle of nowhere, literally, and run it with just a little bit of juice, and you got your propane right there for the heat and a battery for tumbling.
Yeah, remember the old dryers? It was like three choices with three push buttons that were plastic. It was like high, medium, and low, and then start.
Yeah.
Like my sister gave me a dryer because I'm living down the countryside now, and I have a hand-me-down dryer from GE. And she's like, it's an amazing dryer. It cost us, I forget how much she said it was, but she said the circuit board, exactly what you're talking about. The circuit board broke on it, and it was be $500 just for the part for the circuit board. And she's like, oh, I know somebody who works at GE. Maybe we can get it for like $380 for a circuit board. She's like, it's an amazing dryer. Get it, spend the $380, get the circuit board, have the person come in, put the labor in for however many, they're there for an hour or whatever that costs, $40, $50. And then she's like, it's worth it. Get the circuit board and we'll give it the dryer. I'm like, really? That little circuit board costs $380 at a person who knows a person who gets a discount? Like, that's crazy.
Wow.
It's ridiculous what's going on now. These high-tech electronics, can you imagine like an EMP, what's going to fry down here?
Yeah, I was thinking because I just about had a house. I haven't got around to a lot of work this month because we kept having these flickering issues, and then so of course, being a penny pincher, I wait and I wait, and I like to use old stuff until it no longer works. So I go to the main breaker there, and I see little sparks coming off of it, and I'm like, oh no! So I try to turn off the electricity and pull it out, and then the next thing you know, the thing crumbles in my hand. I mean, literally into dust because it was so old and so much heat and electricity has been messing with it for so many years it was just crazy. And then, of course, just like the other things, my breakers are just a little bit different than the new products, right? We were out of electricity for a good little portion, but it made me think if we had anything bigger than a Carrington event, would my trailer house just light on fire? And not just mine, but all of the old trailers like mine across the U.S., all over the place, have these old rickety wires that have been heating up and cooling down and heating up and cooling down and losing their conductivity over years that are just prime for a fire. So if any kind of real blast from the sun came down, all of those, you'd get a surge from the grid, but you'd also have all of those copper wires in your house that are already aged, superheat, and probably the insulator on the outside is probably crumbling, that old rubber and stuff, and to fall out, and then you'll have what, millions, hundreds of millions of house fires all at the same time if something like that happened.
If they stay connected. So word of advice to anybody, we should have some advance notice. I mean, the fastest, let's talk about coronal mass ejection versus an EMP for a second. The fastest CME, like particle discharge from the sun arriving to the earth, was the speed of light. That's the fastest one they've ever seen. Like 8 minutes after, whoosh, it hit the earth. Now, most times you're going to have a couple days. And if we're going to come in with some kind of gigantic event like that, with the Carrington event where the particles are going to, the charged particles are going to come rolling down off the auroras and then spill over into mid-latitudes or even further, Cuba, something like this, you're going to have enough time to make some choices.
Yeah.
One of the choices you're going to want to make is to disconnect your house from the actual power lines.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if you have a little bit of extra time, dig that power line out and take it away from your house. Like in a pinch, you could probably put it up against your car, truck, drive across your yard and put some rope on it and pull it out if you can. It's the best. I mean, I know it's like 3 feet deep. At the very worst, if you have seconds to do this, put on rubber boots and get an axe and cut that thing off your house. Literally. And when I say that, I'm not even joking. If you're getting some kind of warning where it's inbound in 4 minutes to arrival, put on rubber boots, put on rubber gloves, take an axe, and go cut that cable off your house. And then once that thing's live, try to pull it away with brush or whatever you can get it away and make a distance between the arc off your house. Because you got to realize the amount of charge coming down each individual line is going to be different. So as it was explained to me earlier, those huge high voltage current, those huge gigantic things that you see that you go for miles and miles and miles, those things are going to take on huge amounts of extra voltage in each mile or half mile hanging in the sky. Compared to something that's in your house, which is going to take on a couple extra volts. You know, kilovolts, thousands of kilovolts on some of those huge lines versus a few extra volts inside what you're talking about, the copper cabling.
Yeah.
The huge charge comes from when your house is still connected to the grid, quote unquote, off the large lines into the smaller lines. Hopefully that the, something would blow before it got to your house, but it just depends where it was. And you've seen those like plasma balls rolling down. I don't know, a few different videos over the last few years. There's been these plasma balls that you've seen rolling down the electric lines, and they're actually a glowing ball of plasma rolling down the lines. If you were to disconnect yourself from the grid, it should terminate at that point. It should not jump over to your house.
No.
So your number one thing to think about during that time is disconnecting yourself in any way, shape, form, possibility with an axe with rubber gloves to get yourself disconnected from your house. Yeah. That would include telephone wires, and that would include the main into your house as well. Now, if you're living in an apartment building, I'm sorry, you have no choice. You need to run.
Yeah.
But like living way out here in the country, I know where all the breakers are. I know where the endpoint is. I could go out with an axe and cut everything off in about less than 2 minutes from here. Or 3, depending what kind of axe I had.
I wanted to ask you, when we got disconnected, I kind of went over this article you sent me, and I was kind of wanting to know what your thoughts are on this article you sent me about the Pope calling for New World Order. I'm sure you've seen in recent weeks, there's been a lot more meetings between the head of Islam, so to speak, and the Pope, and they've had many discussions about even merging the AI church along with these other ones, kind of in a super amalgamation of religious governmental control. People have talked about Chrislam, but it's so much more than that. It's the integration of world government and religion. And I kind of wanted to hear what thoughts you had on this article. I kind of read it to them, how they were trying to talk about turning everything green and using, of course, the environment and us being humans as bad guys as the focal point of why they need to have this world government. So what were your thoughts on that?
Beware the Sunday law. I'll say it again. Beware the Sunday law. Because included in this, if you look at prophecy and you come back in, going back, one of the indicators, and I'm going to say Pope false prophet right here. Call me out if you want to. I'm going to say you're a charlatan if you try to call me out. If you still believe that Pope's not a false prophet, I'm sorry, you're not awake. The Sunday law is, by law, they're going to come in and make you take Sunday off. All business closed, everything closed. By law, everything on Sunday completely closed 100% across the planet. And by ushering in the Sunday law, which is also part of biblical prophecy, what do? You come into the green agenda, which is the Pope's now pushing. And then if you get into the whole one world government, and I'm not going to say government with a T, it's governance, yes. CE structure. Because they all seem to follow a playbook, but it doesn't seem that there's any one like particular player at the top making the moves. It seems like the veil behind a different dimensionality is pushing out to the world leaders that then come up with each individual plan that they're trying to push out through each individual nation. Beware of this false prophet at the point where a pope is now wanting to integrate with AI, which is from a different dimensionality. That's no longer a servant of God, period. That has gone to the dark side. You can call me out, call me whatever you want. I will not back down from that statement. That is a false prophet. No longer to be listened to, worshipped, idolized, or given tithe to.
Yeah,
period.
There's all kinds of religious things that I could say. I'm not a religious person in the way that the organized religions are or anything like that. But like if I was going to take a Christian point of view, which I'm not a Christian, but I'm pretty familiar with their beliefs and everything. There's been many occasions that this guy has done what they would consider as false propheting, like from saying Jesus failed on the cross to saying Jesus was a socialist. I mean, this guy has had some things to say. And what's really funny is I thought the guy before him was creepy and bad. And comparative, the last guy was a saint. And, you can get into some real esoteric things with this particular guy. For a long time, you weren't supposed to become a pope if you were a Jesuit. And they even had like little weird internal prophecies and different things like that. And yet, here we are in the future with a lot of things that people said would never happen. It's just another one of the long line of things that they're pushing on us that are kind of backwards from what they've been showing us for a long time. And I've been, I keep harping on this, and I want to get a private interview with you about extraterrestrials and how that's going to really, in my opinion, they're going to be bombarding the next generation children with the concept of not only living with them, but that they're here already. And article after article is increasing from, wet conditions on Mars. Underneath it, it has oceans. And, I sent you that article about the Aurora Borealis on Jupiter. So a lot of things are about to change literally visually for people. And I just want to see how these organized religions use things like they always have. Like, you can give an example. Somebody a long time ago that understood the precession of the equinox. They had the dates and times of eclipses. You could literally say, you know what, village, you either give me all your virgins, or I'm gonna make the sun disappear. And then everybody probably laughed at him until the sun disappeared, and then all of a sudden this guy has power. And I see a similar situation that our children and grandchildren are gonna have to deal with because of all of these new ideas, technologies. And I've been kind of showing you people, especially last night. Because ironically, I thought last night was Thursday, so I had a whole thing about AI and robots and how realistic and futuristic they are. And I was showing everybody the little AI tanks and robots that are soon going to be rolling out in an exponentially sooner timeline than previously stated in things like the New American Century, where they wanted to make the entire Air Force an AI, Air Force. But now they're talking about even on the troop level, on the ground level, it's going to be AI. And they're already doing the practice warfare right now in anticipation of putting them in the battlefield in 2022. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we had the same time lapse a few times, right? You thought last night was right. I contacted you a few times and said, hey, is tonight Thursday? And you're like, no, dude, it's Wednesday, right? Like we've had a few of these in and outs on the times of what we thought, which is strange. Because you pretty much know what day it is because you're doing social media and you're out there trying to put content and your findings and your research, etc. You're talking with people, so we generally know what day it is within a couple of days. But for us to miss on those days a few times, it's kind of strange like that. And back to the Pope. If the Pope bends a knee to an alien, you've been given up for a food source. Period.
Wow.
When it comes down like this, and we're told by these leaders of nations and religion to kowtow to these aliens, perhaps those are the ones that were bending and trying to facilitate the policies through these upper echelons of power as the global governance. So there'll be no resistance when they arrive. Thanks for joining us tonight. David Dubine signing off. Mini Ice Age Conversations, along with Ransom Godwin, 420 TV. Until then, plant some food, plant some seeds, get your garden going. Bye.